Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we cut through the noise to get you truly informed. If you've been watching the AI space, you've seen innovation move at, well, absolute warp speed. Just a couple of years ago, it felt like a real Cambrian explosion of new AI startups, a vibrant ecosystem just bustling with fresh, innovative ideas. But then, almost overnight it seems, that same landscape started to feel, well, surprisingly quiet, more like a late Cretaceous scene, maybe. Fewer players, bigger footprints. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into exactly why that is. We're going to explore how the rapid advancement of these incredibly powerful foundational models, and we're talking the big ones here, like GPT O3, Claude 4 Sonnet, Gemini 2.5 Pro, Grok 4, how they're fundamentally reshaping the AI startup ecosystem. It's a phenomenon some are now calling the Great Devouring.
That's right. And our mission today is really to dissect this recent, really insightful piece by Asmat. It's titled The Great Devouring, AI Startup Survival in the Age of Foundational Models. Came out just a few days back, July 21st, 2025. We'll be pulling out the most important nuggets, the key takeaways from that article, trying to help you understand why certain types of AI startups are, well, frankly, struggling, and what platform risk on fast forward actually means in this new era. And crucially, what strategies are emerging for survival in this incredibly dynamic environment. Our goal is basically to equip you, help you navigate this fast-changing world.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack this. We're going to dive into the data, try to classify the casualties, and ultimately sort of lay the groundwork for what a stronger AI business model looks like going forward. Asmat kicks off with this incredible visual, doesn't he? He paints this picture of a massive, towering, large language model skyscraper, just casting this long shadow over a tiny AI startup building. That image alone tells you so much about the power shift that's happening. When you think about traditional platform risk-like, remember when Apple Sherlock's popular macOS utility happens maybe once every few years? They basically see a cool feature someone else built and just absorb it right into the OS, making the original app kind of redundant. Or Microsoft folding an add-in into Office over, a couple of years. That was a slow burn.
A really slow burn compared to now. Yeah, these LLM giants iterate like gamers speedrunning history, as Asmat puts it. And the core reason for this acceleration is pretty fascinating. A large language model is what he calls a hungry universal function approximator. What that means is, basically, as you feed it more data and compute, it doesn't just get better at its core task, it generalizes. It starts doing things that previously needed separate, specialized algorithms. The classic example is GPT-4's jump, right? From just text to full multimodal reasoning. I mean, think about it. The week OpenAI flipped that image toggle on, users generated something like 700 million pictures. Stock photo generators must have felt the ground just tilt beneath them. Their whole business model suddenly under immense pressure.
Wow, 700 million. And you've got the economic gravity pulling things down, too, reinforcing this technical tide. We saw platform API pricing get slashed last year, right? Cut by half or even more in some cases. Plus, you've got ChatGPT Plus just sitting there $20 a month. That basically pegs the retail price of broad AI intelligence at, like, coffee subscription rates. So for you, if you're a startup charging $30 for, say, Smart PDF Chat, what happens when your prospects just ask, oh, why not just use ChatGPT? Your margins just evaporate, differentiation collapses, and suddenly that venture funding pipeline, it freezes up. It's a very real, very immediate problem.
It is. It's truly a tale of two layers, as the article describes it. Traditionally, you had platforms and applications in a more symbiotic relationship. The platform gave you the basic building blocks. The ecosystem built specific, valuable stuff on top. Everybody kind of won. But these LLM vendors, they've completely flipped the script. They're dropping not just those basic primitives, but also really polished consumer features. They're aggressively squeezing out third parties. We've seen OpenAI's agents writing code, reading emails, browsing the web, booking flights even. Google's Gemini sits inside Gmail now, drafting entire conversations for you. Claude 4 Sonnet reflowing legal briefs with these huge context windows. I mean, big enough to swallow War and Peace. Yeah. It's like the platform isn't just the soil anymore. It's become the tallest tree, just hogging all the sunlight and resources.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And it leads right into Scott Ferguson's blunt summary, which I think really resonates with founders. One morning, your document AI startup wakes up a filter option. It's harsh, but it nails the reality. That window, between having a killer demo and the platform reaching parity, it's shrunk to mere months now. And that crazy cadence is what's driving these extinction curves we're starting to measure. So, okay, with these LLMs moving so incredibly fast, we're definitely seeing some clear winners and losers. What does that endangered species list for AI startups actually look like right now? Because, sure, some AI startups have real depth, genuine innovation, but others seem to be, well, just floating on a puddle of prompt engineering, maybe. And those are the ones facing the highest mortality rates, I guess.
Exactly. And ASMET gives us this quick scan taxonomy, these 4 archetypes that are already showing up in the fossil record, so to speak. First up, PDF to summary bots. Remember that, the gold rush in 2023. Every product hunt front page seemed to have a chat with your PDF tool. Legal associates, PhD students, they loved it for about 6 months. Then GPT-4 added native file uploads, Anthropic doubled its context windows, Google folded Bard right into Drive, and boom, instant feature parity, 0 extra cost for the user. Companies like DocuAsk had to pivot hard. ChatPDF is now chasing enterprise deals. The lesson seems pretty clear. If just reading a PDF is your whole value proposition, yeah, the platform's going to subsume you eventually. Okay, next category, generic content generators. Brands like Jasper, Copy.ai, RaiTR, they raise pretty hefty funding rounds for generating marketing copy, blog posts, social captions, that sort of thing. But once ChatGPT O3 shipped, users just, well, they jump ship. Why pay extra when the base chat model writes perfectly decent copy for almost free? Jasper had to trim staff, reposition itself more as an enterprise workflow tool. Sonnet is chasing niche SEO angles. That kind of copy mill approach, without a real distribution edge or some kind of proprietary data set, it's largely become a commodity now. And investors definitely got the memo. Category funding fell something like 50% over just one winter. Huge drop.
Wow, 50%. Okay, what was third?
Third were the CSV chat assistants. The pitch was simple, right, and appealing, especially for non-technical analysts. Ask questions in plain English, get answers in charts. Sounds great. Unfortunately for those vendors, OpenAI released Code Interpreter, which, for anyone unfamiliar, is basically a powerful data analysis tool, kind of like having a Python notebook hidden right inside ChatGPT. It lets the model run code, make charts, crunch numbers, using libraries like Matplotlib, Pandas.
So we could do the same thing.
Pretty much, yeah. Suddenly, what those CSV chat assistants offered became a built-in feature. Competitors charging, say, $10 per CSV. Their differentiation just got sliced away.
Yeah.
The survivors now are tackling much harder ground, like integrating with real-time ERP data. That whole hobbyist layer just melted away.
Okay, and the last one.
Finally, yeah, the rise and fall of prompt chaining UIs. Early on, some LLM explorers liked these graphical tools, things like Flowise, PromptBase. They let non-coders build multi-step workflows visually. That market looked promising for a bit until the models themselves got better at implicit reasoning and the platforms launched their own first-party agents like OpenAI's Agent API. Now, even hobbyists tend to prefer just writing a few lines of code with something like LangChain.
Right, LangChain being that open source framework.
Exactly. It gives developers way more control to string together models and tools for complex apps, much more than those basic UI wrappers ever could. So unless a company owns really unique data or embeds itself super deep into enterprise pipelines, just being a visual prompt wrapper is like standing on quicksand.
Okay, so the common thread here, the fault line across all these archetypes seems pretty clear. They were solving what you might call horizontal single-feature problems. Is that fair?
That's a great way to put it.
Which made them juicy targets for the big platforms and, crucially, very easy to replicate. Anything looked like take text in, spit text out, or maybe click this button and autofill some content. It was just inherently vulnerable, right? Destined to live on the platform's timeline, not its own.
Absolutely. And the numbers that hurt, as ASMET calls them, they really underscore this impact. Seed investment in U.S.-based AI productivity startups, it slid a staggering 46%, went from about $120 million in Q4 2024 down to $65 million by Q2 2025. That's fast. Product hunt launches tagged AI content gen shrank 70% in that same period. Announced pivots and shutdowns jumped 1.5 times. I mean, when the capital retreats and builders stop shipping, natural selection is working overtime.
Yeah, those numbers are stark.
And while AI overall still commands like over 60% of total venture outlay, maybe a third of that cash funnels into just 5 giants. OpenAI, Anthropic, xAI, Google, DeepMind, and NVIDIA. Everyone else is kind of playing musical chairs with the leftovers. As ASMET puts it pretty vividly, if your AI startup can't articulate a real moat, the chair just disappears when the music of the next big model release starts playing.
Okay, brutal. So after all that, the massive question remains, how do you survive this great devouring? How do you actually build a real AI moat in this kind of landscape? This is where it gets really interesting for you, the listener.
Right. The first strategy the article highlights is vertical depth beats horizontal reach. So instead of picturing that shallow, dried-up pond, think more like a deep, gold-lit mine shaft. Most of the top AI startups that are still healthy, still growing in 2025, they're narrow by choice. They focus. They serve specific verticals, auditors, radiologists, bond traders, whatever, not just everyone who owns a laptop.
Yeah.
And that focus buys them insulation because these niches have what ASMET calls wicked edge cases. Tricky, specific problems that the big generic systems just tend to miss. Take Prognosis X, for instance. It's a clinical decision assistant now deployed in about 70 cancer centers. Now, sure, GPT-4 can read pathology notes, no doubt. But Prognosis X pairs that ability with proprietary elements, things like specific tumor staging ontologies, deep patient histories, crucial nuances from FDA labels. And what's really key, its own team of oncologists trains proprietary models on years and years of anonymized patient outcomes. That data is simply unavailable to OpenAI or Google. It gives Prognosis X an accuracy delta, a performance edge that matters profoundly. Well, when someone's life is on the line, right? That combination, deep domain authority plus exclusive data, that's where the real value gets built.
That makes sense. It's not just the AI, it's the whole package.
Exactly. And this vertical depth also creates these powerful adoption loops. Think about it. A radiology department that rewrites its entire workflow around Prognosis X isn't likely to just rip it out when, say, Gemini adds a simple CT scan summary toggle. There's just too much training, too much compliance work, too much deep integration anchoring their decision. That stickiness, that is the definition of a sturdy AI moat.
Okay, so for you, if you're a founder listening, maybe here's a quick checklist. Pick a niche that's regulated or requires deep expertise. Offer an end-to-end workflow, not just some shiny widget feature. And critically, figure out how to gather unique data that the base model giants can't easily license or scrape. Do that, and your AI startup gains a defensive layer even when the next massive LLM shows up with double the parameters. All right, what's the second survival path?
The second path is to own the whole job, not just a single button. The visual here might be like an AI robotic arm commanding a whole production line, not just tightening one screw. The idea is for your product to become actual infrastructure for your user, something running a mission-critical loop every single day. It needs to be indispensable.
Like Gong, maybe?
Gong is a fantastic example, yeah. They never sold a neat call transcript. That wasn't the pitch. They sold a control tower for revenue operations, right? Coaching, forecasting, alerts. The transcript was just one piece of data fueling that bigger system. And you see this pattern repeating across industries. Think about LedgerLoop. It embeds AI agents to audit every single journal entry, route exceptions to human reviewers, push certified corrections back into NetSuite. CFOs keep LedgerLoop because ripping it out means completely revamping their closing calendar. That's painful. Gemini or O3 might offer great anomaly detection someday, sure, but they don't orchestrate your entire month-end workflow inside your specific enterprise ERP system. Owning that loop means you also own the data exhaust, all the data generated by the process. And that data, in turn, lets you tune your models much tighter than any rival could manage just using public samples.
So it becomes a virtuous cycle.
Exactly. When an AI business model wraps around that end-to-end task, you get these economies of learning kicking in. User actions become training events, accuracy climbs, churn drops. That virtuous circle is the definition of a defensible AI startup.
Okay, so some design principles for you to think about here. Map out the full series of steps your users currently take to get a job done. Then automate or accelerate each one of those steps until abandoning your platform feels like climbing Everest, as the article puts it. Make it indispensable. And finally, charge based on the value you capture for them, not just on the number of API calls you make. This way, investors see real, recurring usage metrics, not just vanity MAUs, monthly active users, and they'll be far more likely to open their checkbooks. Makes sense. Okay, third strategy for survival.
The third one is proprietary data compounds forever. Now, everyone talks about the data moat, right? It's become a bit of a buzzword. But few teams actually cultivate one the right way. A real moat only appears if that data is genuinely unique, if it grows continuously over time, and if it meaningfully boosts the performance of your specific application. You know, public Reddit dumps or scraped Wikipedia text. That just doesn't cut it anymore. That's table stakes.
So it has to be special data.
Exactly. The portfolio managers at Signal Delta mentioned in the piece, they understood this early on. They spent a whole decade meticulously storing tick-by-tick financial microstructure data, really granular stuff. When ChatGPT O3 arrived, sure, they used it for some things, but they also fine-tuned a smaller, more specialized model on their 10 years of proprietary intraday anomaly data. That specialized model now feeds directly into their trading signals. And even if GPT-5 learned every finance textbook ever written tomorrow, Signal Delta's private data corpus would likely still provide a statistical edge. Because the data is proprietary, a competitor simply can't replicate that signal without painful license negotiations or incredibly complex, painstaking data engineering.
And I guess that ties back to owning the workflow, too.
It does, yeah. Data moats grow much thicker when they're tied to workflow control, because more usage equals more labeled examples being generated within your system. And those permissioned, context-rich examples are like gold nobody else can mine.
Absolutely.
The result is a future where AI application power really clusters around whoever commands the richest private data reservoir for their specific domain.
Yeah.
This is precisely why you see OpenAI courting newsrooms and biomedical repositories. They need that specific, unique, high-quality data to keep improving in certain areas.
Right. And we actually have some numbers behind Durable Advantage that really show this playing out. Matt looked at PrognosticX, LedgerLoop, and Signal Delta, these 3 startups that seem to have sidestepped extinction by following at least one of these playbook rules. If you index their revenue growth from Q1 2024 to Q2 2025, PrognosticX went from a baseline of 100 up to 340, LedgerLoop went from 100 to 270, and Signal Delta, 100 to a massive 425.
Huge growth.
Yeah, their curves clearly bent upward, while many of their more horizontal peers just flatlined or declined. Clearly, none of these firms were really fearing Code Interpreter or bigger Claude context windows or Grok's open source swagger. They were just building something fundamentally different, something more defensible. So, okay, let's bring it back. What does all this mean for you? Whether you're a founder trying to build something, an investor trying to place smart bets, or maybe an enterprise deciding which AI solutions to procure for your business.
Yeah, good question. For founders, I think the message is stop pitching GPT, but friendlier. That's not a strategy anymore. Instead, start pitching. We fix X specific nightmare for Y specific profession, and we own the valuable data that comes out of that process. Your homework starts with validating a deep, painful problem, then securing top-tier domain talent people who really understand that niche, weaving the AI model deep inside the actual workflow, not just bolted on, and keeping those customer feedback loops constantly humming. You need to respect the disruption these LMs cause, for sure, but use it as leverage for your specific solution, not just as a crutch to lean on. For investors, well, due diligence now absolutely has to begin with a serious moat audit. You need to be asking the tough questions. Okay, if Gemini or Claude rolls out this exact feature next quarter, what part of this business actually survives? If the answer involves deep customer relationships, proprietary labeled data, or complex regulatory integration, then okay, maybe lean in. But if the answer is mostly just a nicer UI or slightly better prompts, probably time to walk away.
Ouch. Okay. And for enterprises buying this stuff?
And for enterprises, yeah, when you're procuring AI tools, you should prioritize vendors who tie their system directly to your unique business logic, your compliance stack. You want a partner whose incentives actually scale with your business outcomes, not just some commodity API middleman who could be swapped out tomorrow with minimal disruption. Look for that deep integration.
Okay. Looking ahead now, maybe add a few more model cycles. The article peers into, say, 2027. Foundational models then will likely be reading video streams, manipulating 3D scenes, maybe even designing firmware. That trajectory seems set to erase entire feature-based categories all over again. The devouring, it continues.
It likely does. The true safe harbor, the most durable place for an AI startup, seems to lie where the giants just don't have an appetite to go. This could be because the domain is simply too small for them to bother with, not worth the resources. Or maybe the liability is too high. Or the integration work is just too messy and specific. Think about things like rural crop insurance analytics, or submarine maintenance planning, or maybe restoring ancient Sanskrit documents. Highly specialized stuff. The concept here is basically small ponds, but big moats. Meanwhile, the future for AI applications probably grows brighter for teams that treat the latest base model as the substrate rather than the summit. Use it as a foundation, not the final product. And open source ecosystems are definitely thriving here too. Lots of builders are already fine-tuning models like llama variants inside their own private clouds. That helps avoid data leakage and vendor lock-in. So, cheap compute combined with solid open weights actually widens the space for creating truly boutique, specialized intelligence.
That's an interesting counterpoint. But one caution, though. The article mentions venture math is definitely changing. Is that right?
Yeah, that's coming through loud and clear. We're seeing expectations shift towards more structured investment rounds, maybe royalty deals, more milestone-based funding tranches, solid traction, real customer usage. That counts for way more now than just, hype tweets or flashy demo.
A return to fundamentals, perhaps.
Exactly. If that discipline sounds kind of old school, well, good. The sector probably needed a dose of it.
Okay, so to bring it all together for you listening, evolution, biological or technological, it tends to punish the slow and reward the adapted. In software, adaptation increasingly means shipping real value that customers can't easily replace with a checkbox feature from a giant platform. The giants will keep shipping those checkboxes. The winners, they'll need to keep moving the goalpost, deepening their moats.
Yeah. And maybe a final thought to chew on. Build your AI startup in such a way that every new release from OpenAI or Google actually makes your stack cheaper to run or more powerful to leverage, not weaker or obsolete. Anchor yourself firmly in unique data, essential workflow, and deep vertical expertise. If you do that, then each new extinction wave from the platforms might actually feel like free tailwind pushing you forward. All the rest, well, they risk becoming fossils. Another line in the inevitable, sometimes brutal, chart of tech history. Maybe the takeaway is, treat every single product decision you make as if GPT-5 arrives tomorrow. Because it just might.